The sun had barely risen, and the small village was just beginning to wake up. Roosters crowed loudly, women swept dusty yards, and thin smoke curled slowly from clay cooking pots. It seemed like an ordinary morning in 1970, but on this particular day, a young boy named Daniel was about to discover something new, something strange, something impossible. It all began with a mysterious buzzing sound. The sound was coming from deep inside the forest. Daniel was a curious 12-year-old boy with bright eyes and endless questions about the world. He lived with his grandmother in a small mud house near the edge of the village. Every morning, he had one simple chore: fetch water from the stream. But Daniel had a small problem. He was easily distracted. Butterflies fluttering in the air, birds building nests, strange footprints in the sand. Everything fascinated him. That morning, as he walked down the narrow path with his clay pot, he suddenly heard a strange sound. Bzz. Whir. Bzz. Daniel stopped walking. "That doesn't sound like any bird I know," he murmured. The sound was coming from the forest. Curiosity quickly defeated responsibility. Instead of going to the stream, Daniel slowly stepped into the forest. The deeper Daniel walked, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no monkeys, just that strange mechanical buzzing. Bzz. Whir. Then suddenly, Daniel pushed aside a large bush and froze. His eyes widened in shock. In the middle of a small clearing stood something shiny and metallic, a strange silver machine with blinking lights, and standing beside it was a man wearing unusual clothes. Daniel had never seen anything like it before. The man turned around. He wore large round glasses and held a strange device in his hand. "Oh!" the man exclaimed in surprise. "A local resident." Daniel dropped his clay pot in shock. Who are you?" he asked nervously. The man smiled calmly. "My name is Professor Williams, and I may have accidentally arrived here from the future." Daniel blinked several times. "The future?" he repeated. Professor Williams nodded and pointed toward the silver machine. "This is a time machine. I was supposed to land in the year 2070, but something went terribly wrong." Daniel stared at the machine in disbelief. "You mean, you came from the future?" the professor chuckled. "Yes, my boy, a very long way into the future." Then his expression suddenly became serious. "But I need your help." Daniel's curiosity immediately returned. "What kind of help?" "The kind only a brave young explorer can provide." Professor Williams explained that the time machine needed a special power crystal to function. But when he landed in the forest, the crystal rolled away somewhere into the bushes. Without it, he would be stuck in 1970 forever. Daniel's heart began racing with excitement. This was the greatest adventure of his life. "Don't worry," Daniel said confidently. "I know this forest better than anyone." And just like that, the boy and the professor began searching through the forest. They searched everywhere: under rocks, behind tree roots, inside hollow logs. But the crystal was nowhere to be found. Then suddenly rustle. A loud sound came from the bushes. Daniel froze. Out stepped a large wild goat with sharp horns, and something shiny was hanging from its neck. Daniel gasped. The crystal. The goat had somehow picked up the crystal necklace. Professor Williams whispered nervously, "How do we get it back?" Daniel smiled confidently. "I have an idea." Daniel slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out something goats loved more than anything: fresh cassava leaves. He waved them gently. The goat's ears lifted. Step by step, the animal moved closer. Professor Williams held his breath. The goat stopped right in front of Daniel and began happily chewing the leaves. Quickly and carefully, Daniel unclipped the crystal necklace. "Got it," he whispered excitedly. Professor Williams jumped with relief. "You did it." Back in the clearing, Professor Williams placed the crystal into the machine. Immediately, the lights began glowing again. Whir. Bzz. The machine hummed to life. Daniel suddenly felt a little sad. "So, you're leaving now?" The professor smiled warmly. "Yes. But before I go," he handed Daniel a small metallic coin. "In the future, people like you change the world." Daniel looked at the strange coin. "What do you mean?" The professor winked. "Stay curious." The machine began glowing brighter and brighter. Wind swirled around the clearing. Leaves lifted into the air. "Goodbye," Daniel," the professor shouted. Then flash! The machine disappeared. Silence returned to the forest. Daniel stood there alone, holding the strange coin. Was everything just a dream? He slowly walked back toward the village path. But suddenly, the coin in his hand began to glow. Tiny glowing letters appeared on its surface. It read, "Future Inventor Daniel." Daniel stared at it in amazement. What does that mean? Well, that is a story for another day. But here's a question for you. If you could travel back to 1970 for just one day, what would you do? Tell me in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more amazing animated stories.